Penyberth, Plaid Cymru 1, RAF 0. The early hours of the 8th of September 1936 saw the most audacious Welsh arson attack since the days of Owain Glyndwr by the then leader of Plaid Cymru, Saunders Lewis, and other volunteers at the RAF bombing school under construction at Penyberth on the Llyn peninsula. The following reading is from the book The Fight for Welsh Freedom by Gwynfor Evans, who was leader of Plaid Cymru from 1945 to 1981. Plaid Cymru was put on the map by the dramatic fracas caused by the government's decision in 1935 to place a bombing school in the heart of Welsh-speaking Llŷn peninsula. Led by Saunders Lewis, the opposition was based on two grounds. One was its purpose, to train men in the techniques of bombing military and civilian targets from the air. The other was its location in a wholly Welsh-speaking area of historic importance. It would turn one of the essential homes of Welsh culture, idiom and literature into a site for the promotion of a barbarous method of warfare. The government had intended establishing similar institutions in Northumberland and Dorset, but refrained in both places. In the north, because historians protested that historic Lindisfarne would be harmfully affected, and in the south, because of the proximity of a swannery. But in Wales, despite the protests of organisations representing some 500,000 people, it went ahead. The Prime Minister refused to meet the deputation of national leaders. A letter, signed by tens of prominent Welshmen, was sent to the Times. It was rejected. This was wholly consonant with the arrogant attitude of the British establishment towards Wales in the interwar decades. In consequence, after ensuring that no one would be injured, a group of Welshmen took action. As a symbolic act of protest, they set fire to the bombing school's stacks of timber and building materials. 3 of them gave themselves up to the police. The 3 were Saunders Lewis, Plaid Cymru's president, Lewis Valentine, the party's first president and first parliamentary election candidate, and D.G. Williams, a character of extraordinary gaiety and purity of heart, whose books will be read as long as the Welsh language is read. A farm worker, and then for 10 years a collier, before proceeding to the universities of Wales and Oxford. In the trial at Caernarfon, Saunders Lewis gave one of the most impressive addresses ever heard in a court of law. It was almost wholly in English, as the defendants were not allowed to address the court in Welsh. The jury failed to agree on a verdict. The case was then transferred to the Old Bailey, so that the defendants could be tried by their equals. They were sentenced to 9 months' imprisonment. After spending their sentence in Wormwood Scrubs prison, they were welcomed home to Wales by a gathering of 15,000 people in Caernarfon's huge pavilion. But Saunders Lewis was sacked from his post as a lecturer at the University College Swansea. As a footnote, a young 23-year-old, Gladwyn Hughes, who was later to become Gladwyn Gwent, acted as a getaway driver for Victor Hampson Jones, who had assisted that night in Penyberth. Even during its parliamentary past, Plaid Cymru was progressive and ahead of its time in terms of equality, with a female having an important role in operational matters. This small band of Plaid Cymru brothers and sisters were arguably as courageous as the Irish freedom fighters who occupied the General Post Office in Dublin 20 years prior to Penyberth during the 1916 Easter Rising, which led to Irish independence.